Looking like another cloudy, rainy day. Good morning, adventurers, and welcome back to my channel. You know, looking out my door on a rainy day like this, it's really super peaceful and gentle. And it's kind of special because in the desert, a lot of times you don't experience the rain. And so when you do get to experience it, you can see all the plants soaking in the water and just really enjoying the cool air as opposed to the beaming heat that we're so familiar with. It's kind of beautiful. And even though this year's been a little weird and there's been a lot more rain, and some of the desertous areas have experienced a lot of rain, and in fact here in Arizona it's gotten a little sketchy in some places, where we are it's pretty nice. It's pretty calm. And the smell of the rain is just almost intoxicating. It's beautiful. But I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time here around camp and then head out for the day and get a few things done inside. But wow, let's take a look outside and then we'll talk about it. As you can see, the rain's pretty gentle here. It's not like it has been across the state. In fact, as I've been in Arizona, I've witnessed several different seasons unfolding before my very eyes. Of course, when I first pulled in, I was in the Flagstaff area and it was snowing, and oh my gosh, it was miserably cold. It was like in the low 20s, and at nighttime it would drop down even lower. And then during the time that we were in Quartzsite, it was really windy and super crazy and almost like a sandblaster taking to your skin. And then I came over to the Phoenix area and it was nice and pleasant. And then I left and then came back and it had just started to get warm. In fact, it's been in the 80s here already. But today is just a departure from that, where it's nice and relaxing. But let's talk about some of the other things that have been happening here in Arizona. Some of the things that I've been avoiding. And let's talk about why I travel as much as I can with the weather. Now, a lot of you have noticed along the way that I don't have any insulation in my van. Now, insulation's never been a thing for me, so I've always traveled with the weather. And a lot of times I've been asked, why don't you just insulate your van? Why don't you put insulation in? You could do more things. Any series of that line of commentary has been sent in my direction numerous times. But as you can see, I still have the bare ribs of my van here. And one of the reasons why I did that was because I wanted to be able to sit up. And as you can see, I built my van where I can sit up and have a little bit of space, but nothing too crazy. And in fact, when I get over the ribs, I kind of have to hunch down just a little bit because of the bed height. Now, it was important for me to have a bed that was this tall because I wanted to be able to conceal my refrigerator. So my entire plan and layout for the space that I have had to do with the things that I needed to be able to put under my bed. Now, we're all a little bit different, but that was a huge thing for me personally. And I've always encouraged people to think of the things that they want to do in their individual space to make it their own, but also to make it work for the layout. I've tried several different layouts. I've tried a layout which was on the opposite side. I've tried a layout where I had a different kind of bed when I first started out. And as I've grown over time, being in the van, this has been the best layout so far, and it's worked really well for me. But the one thing that it does not allow for is insulation, as you see. The best that I could possibly do is some reflectics, but I don't like the crunchiness of them on the ceiling if I were to hit my head on it. And realistically, I did try laying some in on the top just to see how much of a difference they make, and it was very minimal. But because of that, again, I usually travel with the weather. And that's actually been a blessing in a lot of cases, because there are some instances where I might travel with the weather and get away from something that's really bad, all because I'm trying to make sure that I don't get too hot or too cold. In fact, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's been going on in Arizona right now. But before we do, I'm going to get up, get around, move into the front, and get us ready to go for the day. Give me just 1 second. And while you're giving me that second, check out some of this stuff.
Good morning, Arizona. Gibby here near Cave Creek Wash, where earlier Daisy Mountain, along with other fire departments, had to do a water rescue. Take a look at this. There is a woofing truck that got swept away by these high waters here at this wash.
Robinson for Arizona's Family. Right now I'm in Black Canyon City at the River's Edge RV Park. Take a look at this. This water is seriously about to crest. It's about 1:30. They're predicting it'll crest around 2. Right now the people in this RV park are under an evacuation order. They're trying to get out as soon as possible.
As you can see, it's been pretty bad in Arizona, and it's all because the weather has changed. And as the snow comes down and it begins to melt, it pushes down to get closer and closer to the water source, which is the ocean, the lakes, and the streams. And because of that, there's been a lot of chaos. Now, just around this area, I was looking at some really cool hiking trails and thinking, oh yeah, we haven't had a lot of rain, we should be fine. Only to find out that the Salt River, which I learned about at one of the other sites, used to always flow, but has pretty much been thought of as kind of a drier river now, is flowing, like big flowing. And a lot of people have been coming down here as a result to go rafting, and a lot of people have been going out and hiking without planning ahead and getting swept up in these waters. It's very dangerous. So, to that I say, even when you travel with the weather, sometimes you can't plan for the unexpected. And so today, I'm going to be taking a very casual day, as I do on days like today, so that the world around me can settle down just a little bit so I can assess to make sure it's safe. Now, a lot of things that have been happening in some of the places that I was wanting to go to have prohibited me from going there. For example, they had an air flight out of one of the most popular tourist destinations for like all of Arizona, the beautiful Havasupai Falls. They've also had evacuations out of Sedona because people are getting swept away in some of the washes that are unpredictably just starting to flow. And I think that that's why it's super important to kind of know your surroundings and then also check for safety things that you could learn about the area. If you're hiking in an area in a wash and it's been a time where there's lots of melting, maybe don't go there. I know it's inconvenient. I know you can't see things. I have been so sad because I really wanted to go to the Sedona area, but at the same time, my safety is much more important than seeing something super cool. So as a result, having a van, super handy because I can travel and move around. Now, does it actually save me not having the insulation in the van from everything? No, it does not. Having insulation would be helpful in some scenarios, especially when I'm passing through from one area to the next. However, at the same time, it's not such a deal breaker because I do travel so much. And I think that that's one of the things that I assessed whenever I first started out my van journey as one of my priorities. Everybody has different priorities, and mine's never been to sit still for a long time in weird weather. It just hasn't. In fact, as I've been kind of seeing all this weather around me, I've been going, okay, is this coming here? Do we need to go somewhere else? Where do we go next? So, with that said, I'm going to go somewhere to do a little bit more research. I think I'm going to be fine here in the Phoenix area where we're staying. It doesn't appear to have any washes running through it, which means a big safety yes for me. The weather has cooled down a bit because of this rain, which takes me away from the it was getting too hot in here kind of moment. And so I think that all in all, I might be able to sit still for just a little bit longer. But again, it's all about knowing your surroundings, knowing your expectations, and knowing what your wants and desires are in your space. And I hope that answers a little bit of the questions as to why I haven't put insulation in my van. But for those of you who are very concerned about my well-being, I hope that also tells you that I'm always being vigilant. And I think that you guys should too. Whenever we're traveling, we need to be knowledgeable of where we're going. We need to do a little bit of research. You can still do things that you want to do, but just be mindful of your surroundings enough, because you don't want to put yourself in harm's way ever. It's very important, especially if you're a solo traveler, to have an accountability buddy of some kind, and also to have some preparedness items. Now, I did a video on preparedness a few videos back. Go check out what I personally suggest for preparedness and also what's going on with the Red Cross. But as of this moment, I'm prepared, I'm ready, I'm well researched, but I'm still going to go do a little bit more because you're never prepared enough. In fact, as I'm going to be navigating to a couple of other places here in the next couple of weeks, I just want to make sure that they're safe. I've already had a couple of plans go awry because I had planned things and then, you know, the world around me said different based on the weather. And I think that that's one of the things that we need to understand. Today in Phoenix, it's sprinkling, it's beautiful, it's nice, it's pleasant. But that doesn't mean that up the way somewhere it's not pouring or melting or coming down this way in some way, shape, or form. The world around us is not just one thing. It's all of the things that factor into the bigger picture. For example, those who are in California right now, they might have been getting snow and ice and all sorts of craziness. But as that starts to melt, that's going to turn into water, which is not only going to affect the people who had all the snow, but it's also going to affect all the people that are down the hill from them and all the way out to the ocean. And so it becomes this like ongoing danger. And so we do want to be mindful of everything that's going around that could possibly affect our journeys and tell us kind of where we need to move. Now, it's not going to do you any good in the world if you have a plan with your insulation, if you're not also paying attention to the weather and also some of the news. I know a lot of us like to come to van life and have an escape. We want to check out. We don't want to have to go and see all of the doom scrolling that happens with the news. However, in way of weather, we still have to pay attention, guys. We can't completely check out and just pretend like reality doesn't exist. We do need to pay attention to those things because it could actually mean the difference between us having a good campsite or waking up the next morning flooding and going down a stream. So what does a rainy day look like for me? We're going to go do the research. We're going to go edit some videos. We're going to go do our laundry. We're probably going to pick up some pho. I really love pho on a cold day. It's kind of chilly, so it's a perfect day because it's cozy and warm and it's just comforting. So that's going to be what my day looks like. But before I started that day, I wanted to talk to you guys about why days are like today and what exactly goes through my head on days like today and how I start off, and also answer a few of those weird questions that relate to the extremes, the hot or the cold. Now, if I were in an area and it started snowing, I would have a hard-pressed moment to not say, oh my gosh, let's get out of here. Because I personally had a bad situation when I first started out in my car where I slid down a mountain backwards because I hit ice and just kept falling backwards. And I couldn't see it until I was up on it. And I had no idea what to do because I've never really been a person to drive on ice. So I just had to let it coast down, and eventually it stopped in the side of the mountain. Thank goodness, because if it would have turned the other way, it could have gone much worse for me personally, and you might not be seeing me here, and that's not me being dramatic. I was on the top of a very large mountain. But after that, it really made me aware of not only do I need to travel with the weather so that I can have a more prime time to explore and enjoy things, but also that I needed to plan in advance for those kinds of things, and also think and put myself in those positions of what would I do if I encountered that again. Now, in that particular situation, I was so fortunate. There was cell service, so I was able to call a tow truck who was able to get me where I needed to be so that I could get back down the mountain, and I was just out a little bit of money. That was super early in my channel, but it was one of the most traumatic situations that I have ever experienced on the road, just because the feeling of floating backwards into who knows what is terrifying, guys. It is so scary, and I don't wish that on anyone. So that's part of the reason why I do videos like this, where I tell you to sit down, take that extra little 5 minutes of Google searching for the weather, for the conditions, and then also checking the weather and conditions at the higher altitude if you're going to be traveling to it. Because it's super important to not only know what's going on the surface where you actually are when you pull up your weather app, but also what's going to happen as you climb in altitude. The same thing goes if you're in a wash. If you're in a wash that's a camping area, you might feel fine and confident what's happening above you. Is ice melting? Is snow coming your way? Are they getting a lot of rain? If they are, just avoid the wash altogether and maybe camp on higher ground, because you'd rather wake up in the morning with a view of a watery area than being in the watery area. It's much harder to get out of a situation once you're in it than if you could have avoided it just by paying attention to the few things on the weather. Now, with that said, let's use our launch key and launch this van off to our research lab, which is also known as a Starbucks today. I'm going to be doing some various research, not only for what's going on this week, but also next week, because again, I'm kind of just trying to see where I need to go on my journeys next so that I can figure out where the safest place to be is, and then also where I can have the most impact of adventures. I'm hoping that this video has encouraged you guys to do the same. Now, I know a lot of people, again, like to check out, and that's their departure from reality when they come to van life, but we need to be vigilant. We need to take care of ourselves, and we need to remember also that we have to be our own advocate, and sometimes that just means being our own advocate by the path that we choose. We are in charge of our destiny here on the road, and it's all in your hands. Nobody's going to do it for you. You have to be the one to drive yourself. You have to be the one to take care of paying attention to the world around you, and especially if you're traveling by yourself, you also need to be accountable for your preparedness. Make sure you're packing things that you need with you, that if you do get stranded because of bad weather, because you didn't do some research or because something changed a little bit, that you're going to be okay. And then also make sure that you have somebody who will know if you are not. I think that that is the biggest thing. I have an Apple phone, so I have several friends who at any given time can see exactly where I am based on my phone. But I also have some other things for security that I can let people know where I am, and if they don't hear from me, they can look at where I last was and figure out kind of my proximity. That is so important. Now, I know that whenever we started this video, you guys were thinking, oh, this is going to be talking about just the van and not having insulation. Surprise, it's not. That's just one part of the bigger picture, but as you can see, the pieces intertwine. In fact, in a van, all of your life will at some point overlap, whether it's how you built something, what you're putting inside, what you're doing, where you're going. It's all part of the bigger picture. And so that's why it's important on videos like today, where we talk about not only driving for the weather and not having insulation, but also how we plan where we're going to go so that we can be safe, not only from the heat and the cold, but from the weather itself. Until next time, guys, remember, we're not here for a long time, but we are here for a good time. And I'm hoping that your times can be much better because you're preparing for them. Remember, guys, it's all about you on the road. Have fun, get out there, do something epic, and I'm about to launch. Bye, guys.